2, 3. Welcome to another podcast of Living a Full Life. I'm in today with Tom, and actually this is like an inverse interview. He's going to interview me about red light. His team at J. Campbell are all excited about what the trifecta red light bed does in our office. And they were like, hey, man, we really need to market this. And I was like, yeah, we really do need to market this because I'm having a hard time getting this out there because people really don't know much about red light, yet alone this technology that we've invested into. We've seen amazing results with red light. We use it for a whole bunch of things, and we're ending up learning that it's actually doing a lot more other things than we're not telling people about. The most common effects are like skin, collagen, wrinkles, their face looks better, their stretch marks look better. It's all like an immediate skin effect, but we're using it for like inflammation, fat loss, fast shrinking, and that's what we've been pushing. And those effects take a little bit longer. So that's what we've seen so far is a lot of people coming in recently. Now that we've been running it for 6 months, people are like, my cholesterol is better. My white blood cells are normal. My like anti-inflammatory type markers are starting to show up in their blood work, which is pretty cool. So now we're going to run into getting more of this data. But yeah, that's where we're at so far. 6 months into this, we've been using the trifecta wrap for about 3 years. So we know a little bit about it and we've been doing it, but that's where we are so far.
Right. So just to clarify, the wrap is the older machine. The Pro 450 is a new one you've been using for the past 6 months.
Correct. The 450 is like, it looks like a tanning bed, the one that you lie in and surround yourself with light. The old wrap system is like cool sculpting and those types of wrap systems that you would wrap directly around the skin, the thighs, the arms, the abdomen. Yes.
Understood. Now, one question I want to ask just from the beginning. Whenever I see red light being talked about, it's always talked about as red light and near infrared light. Why is it always the two talk together? Why is it never one or the other? Why are the two always combined when people talk about them?
On the spectrum of light, we have red light, we have near infrared light, we have infrared, and then we have white light. This is all based on the nanometers of the wavelength of the light that we're using. So it actually in medicine goes from red light all the way to cold laser, which is white light. Which is about 900 nanometers. We started about 500 nanometers with what's visible light. Then the red light turns into different colors as we get even lower than that. So you can use purple light, blue light. Those things do different things because the wavelength becomes lower and lower and lower, which doesn't give you much penetration between underneath the skin. Red light and near infrared can actually penetrate the skin and get a little bit deeper than the skin subcutaneous area. So we are really good at decreasing inflammation subcutaneously, which means fat deposits that are underneath there, visceral fat that's underneath there. But if somebody came in with like a disc herniation with disc pain along their spine, red light and infrared light would not get enough penetration to go, a half an inch, 1 inch, 2 inches deep. So once we get into cold lasers, class 3, class 3B, we pulse that light because it can get hot, the white light. And usually you have to wear goggles to protect your retina because white light can actually damage your retina. Red light cannot. It doesn't penetrate that deep and it doesn't affect your retina, that wavelength. So pretty cool stuff. So you can lie in the red light bed, 450 with no goggles, no sunglasses, nothing. But typically when you work with cold laser for injury, that white light penetrates a lot deeper. I used to use it in my last practices. And then in cosmetic surgery, it won't pulse. Class 4 laser, it's a constant beam of light. You can actually cut skin. It gets hot. They use it for tattoo removals, laser cosmetic surgery, laser surgery. That's in more surgical centers. So that's the wavelength of light and how color works without becoming too nerdy.
That's okay. I mean, so basically now you're kind of emerging. You're talking about it. So generally, you're talking about phototherapy as a whole, not necessarily red light therapy, correct?
Phototherapy is the entire spectrum of light. Yes.
Right. And with how much of a difference is there between red light and near infrared? Because like I said before, I noticed that people do use those terms sometimes interchangeably. And I'm wondering if that's a technical distinction or if there is a reason why people say both red light and near infrared are helpful.
Near infrared encompasses red light. So in that wavelength of near infrared is red light. So that's where red light falls under that umbrella of near infrared. Once we get into infrared, you can't see the red anymore. It becomes a very faint. If you were to use infrared, it'd be like a light red color. If you use a red light bed, the entire room looks like you're staring at the sun. It's just this bright red light. It looks like a nuclear reaction. Perfectly safe, but super bright red.
Right. So one thing I wanted to talk about, and imagine the reason Jay went to primarily was fat loss, if I'm not mistaken, because that's the big thing that he's been harping on. And I read some of the studies that you linked to me through the Trifecta website, and the common theme that seemed to be very prominent was making the fat cell membranes more porous without killing the fat cells. Why is it important to not kill the fat cells?
Fat cell, I mean, are important. Every cell in your body is important. Every cell in your body. So when we talk about somebody that's 350 pounds and somebody that's 150 pounds and they're both 6 feet tall, they both have the same amount of cells in their body. So just the person that's 350 pounds has swollen cells, unless they're the Rock. Maybe they're 350 pounds of pure muscle, but their cells are swollen, giving them that inflammatory risk factors that come with overweight and being obese that come with that. So we have the same. So we don't want to remove fat cells. Fat cells play a role in the detoxification process in the body. We just don't want them hyperinflamed all the time because it brings negative health benefits from it. So really important to not kill fat cells, because when we destroy cells in the body, we create an inflammatory process of macrophages that need to go in and take care of those dead cells. So if you're killing cells, that's a bad thing. Your body's actually dying. So we don't want to create that inflammatory response from killing it. In liposuction, they actually go in there and completely remove the cell. So they are killing it, but it's being removed. So our body doesn't have to create a macrophage response and have to recycle all that material, which is very stressful on our immune system.
Right. And on that subject, I'm reading your FAQ, and one of the things that you say is you should recommend liver support to your patients because, quote, the liver is the ultimate filter to remove toxins and nutrient byproducts from the body. The fast release of fat can sometimes overwhelm the liver, and for this reason, a high-quality liver support is recommended. So with that in mind, what do you recommend for high-quality liver support? And is it like a supplement or like a food? Like, how does that work in your practice?
Multiple supplements. So when it comes to weight loss, the reason why we bring in gizmos, as I like to talk, because there's tons of stuff on the market. Half of it's bull. The other half's actually very viable. And the reason we bring it in is because weight loss is very restrictive in marketing. Google does not allow it. Right. Facebook does not allow it. You pretty much have to use billboards or mail to the houses for this stuff. So because of that, this is where Ultra Slim, Cool Sculpting, Trifecta, all these companies are coming out with ways to entice people that there's a natural way to lose fat. But the trick to this is that you can't just hop on the bed and go and eat wine or go and eat McDonald's and drink wine. I mean, so we teach them a weight loss program. So this gets them through the door. They realize, hey, I got to couple this with an anti-inflammatory diet. Tons of different diets you can choose. The one we do is intermittent fasting in the morning, eat lunch and dinner, but whole foods, protein, veggies, fruits. Pretty simple stuff. Comes from everything: Mediterranean diet, whole food diet, whole third, paleo. It comes from all the same stuff. Absolutely. But it's because these diets work. So then we get amazing results. Then we couple it with the red light. Their fat cells shrink faster. They see amazing results faster than maybe joining, Jenny Craig online, trying to do it themselves. So that's where, and it ends up becoming a very affordable weight loss program because they're not wasting a lot of time and money. We do it 6 weeks at a time. People lose 20 plus pounds every 6 weeks. So if they have more weight to lose, it's pretty amazing stuff. So good question there. So the liver support stuff, once you start losing weight, you're shrinking the cell. All that intracellular fluid has to go into your lymphatic system. Your body now is processing all those toxins at a higher rate. And then the liver's under a lot of stress. So then we give them phosphatidylcholine, coenzyme Q10. Depends on the patient, their blood work, their history. Some people have thyroid issues. Some people might be diabetic. You got to play with this. So our program is doctor-supervised. So a doctor is always supervising the patient through that. Good question, though.
Right. Another thing I want to ask on the subject of weight loss program is have you been able to determine that a lot of the accelerated fat loss was due to the red light specifically, and not just because they're following a diet for the first time? Because I imagine at some point you would have to, if you're really serious about this, calorie control subjects between a placebo and a test group, even though some of these technologies are already FDA approved. So I'm wondering, how do you guys make the distinction to know, how much is red light contributing versus how much just a healthy lifestyle is contributing?
Right. Those studies have been done, actually. through the history of red light. So, and which is over 25 years old. So modernly in the last 15 years is where we got all these technologies, but, and the beds are very new, just at a high dose. So we've done that. We've had control, group with diet, group with red light, and then group with both. And the group with both shrink faster inch loss than the other two groups. So they win in every category, and a lot of all the other competitors to Trifecta have their studies too. Same thing. So red light has been now shown to be. My joke is, if China mass produces and replicates on a lower level, obviously it's working because they've got traction. They're just creating these fake pads that don't really do anything. So so if they're doing it, it obviously is working. It's not just a gimmick. So that's where we're at. And those tests are all over by different companies. You can find them all over the web. I just wanted to support Trifecta because that's the bet I have. But it's all out there. So they've done the controls. When you do both together, it's a more dramatic, visible. People's clothes start to get looser on them right away rather than the group. The diet group seems to be the best group. So people who just did red light without a proper diet program had the least results. They had a lot of skin results and the great benefits of red light, but when it came to weight loss, their weight actually didn't change too much. It was more the people that followed a diet.
Interesting. So they had good body composition results, but not good weight loss results. Is that my understanding correctly?
Right. You can shrink fat cells, which are lighter on the body than muscle cells. Muscle cells are a lot heavier than our fat cells. So 5 pounds of fat is like a small watermelon, and 5 pounds of muscle is a condensed piece of like a baseball.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very different, the mass distribution, because a lot's more water weight than the other. Interesting.
And on that note, I'm curious to know, like, I mean, there are thousands of red devices on the internet, as you already know. I mean, you go on Amazon, and you can see like a $100, $200 pad with like 5,000 reviews, and yet here you guys are. You've chosen one of the most premium products on the market. Why, out of all the products on the market, clinical, non-clinical, did you decide to go with Trifecta 450 specifically?
Lots of research. I just did my research, and we don't have a lot of gizmos in our office. And the few things that we have are the best on the market, or at least close to the best in the market. So I've always been like that. Even the nutraceuticals we have in our office are not just one brand. We have the best multivitamin on our shelf, and the best liver detox on the shelf, and the best collagen on the shelf, all different brands from different parts of the United States, because we do our research. That's what we do. We don't carry a lot. We just carry the best and what we need to get the patients through. We pride ourselves on that, and we did the research, and we had the results with the wrap. So the wrap gave us a lot of confidence to stick with Trifecta and say, hey, we'll invest in your new one. We actually it was such a backup in production. We actually had their previous model that we put down on. Okay. So by the time it came up that we were ready to get the new model, they're like, by the way, we will distribute you on the new model. It's a little bit extra. And we said, go for it. And we were I think the fourth bed in America to get it here in Tampa. So that was pretty cool. And the results, I've been pushing the fat loss. I've been pushing the anti-inflammation and the pain as a chiropractor, but the feedback I'm getting is way more than that. We are getting people's cholesterol blood work coming back better, and they're doing nothing. They're just doing the red light, no chiropractic, no functional medicine, nothing.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
So I'm curious, how many of your subjects are usually obese people versus people like Jay who are leaner? Because I'm trying to think like if this thing would be useful for obese people, but then there's diminishing returns as you become a leaner individual. Say like somebody who's at 30% body fat is going to get something much different from what somebody at 15% body fat would get.
And that demographic that's, 15% body fat trying to get down to 13 is a completely different mindset for these people. They're doing everything they can, both working out, diet, and everything. You actually need to, it's just like cardio. When you're trying to get that last 2%, you got to increase that cardio. You got to restrict the carbohydrates. It puts you into another level. Same thing with the red light. To get that results for the last two, you just got to do way more red light. So even though we tell our patients 2 to 3 times a week for fat loss, for global fat loss, getting from 30 BMI to 26 BMI, that's a different story.
Right.
Somebody who wants to get down to 13% athletic BMI, they might be doing this every 5 days a week to try and get that results from that. So That's what we're learning and testing on the population. And most of our patients fall into the overweight. Not very many are 30 plus BMIs. They're up in the upper 20s. They've got 30 pounds to lose. They got something like that. That's it. But we've had people lose 128 pounds, like on this program. With diet did the most of it. But this light is just such a great subset to this.
Actually, that would lead me to my next question, which I just came up with. Sure, there's clearly the proven mechanism of making the fat cell memory more porous and all that, which is outlined in the studies you gave me. But I'm wondering, like, if red light changes anything cognitively, because I'm starting to think, like, what if this red light technology has the power to somehow, like, let's say you put a pad in your brain, for example, or on your forehead, then all of a sudden things like mental health ailments and other things are just suddenly a lot easier to deal with. Have you noticed that in your practice?
We have with the people that strictly are coming in for red light. They haven't even been introduced to the stuff we're doing. They're coming back reporting better memory, less brain fog. There's tons of studies if you keep going through the ones I sent you on Parkinson's, MS. I mean, brain stuff that we have. I've been seeing it with post-concussion syndrome. I put people on that, like after a car accident or a sports injury, on there to just help decrease inflammation. They sleep better. Their pupil reflex comes back a lot quicker just because we're reducing inflammation on the brain. So really, you can use this anywhere. Knee pain, shoulder pain. That's how I've been using it. It's been absolutely fantastic. Neuropathy. This is a big one we're doing right now. Wrapping people's legs, because in that population, they have a tough time lying down or even moving. They're just in a lot of pain, so they can't lie down on the bed. So that's why we've kept both technologies in our office. So yeah, when it comes to brain stuff, I wish I had more patients to talk about today about all that stuff and be like, oh my gosh, this has been so good for like dementia patients, but I don't have that stuff yet. As I do more, I'll talk about it more. But for cholesterol, dizziness, vertigo, these patients are getting results without any other medical care.
Interesting. Now, for the fat loss, since using the bed, do you cover people's bodies and then expose a specific segment of the body, or do you just do the whole body regardless?
That's why we got the bed. It's just so much easier. Red light cannot penetrate any material. So if you wear a shirt or a bra or underwear, it will not penetrate that area. It will be absorbed by the color of that garment.
Right.
So I always tell patients, lock the door. It's all yours, and bring your bathing suit or take off your shirt and just expose as much skin as possible that you like. We just had a lady start for frozen shoulder. She can't move her shoulder. I'm like, go in there. We're doing this for your shoulder, but watch all these benefits. And she's like 50. Watch all these benefits. And she's like, oh, I'm getting naked because of the skin, the collagen, the wrinkles. She's like, I'm going to just be in my underwear. I'm like, great. So yeah, you want to expose as much as possible.
Right. But if you just covered up, let's say I covered up everything else except for my belly, would the results be more targeted, or would it be the same thing regardless?
Same thing. Because the wavelength travels in one direction, it doesn't scatter.
Right.
It's a straight stream. It's targeting. That's why you have lights on the bed above and below. So you're like the sandwich. You're like the meat in the sandwich, right? So everything's just penetrating like that. But again, red light only gets a few centimeters of penetration. So it just gets to the fat cells in the skin. That's where all the great stuff happens. But when it comes to the head, we're getting like clarity here because it's right there. The skull's right there. It can penetrate the global surface of the brain, which is pretty cool.
Actually,
like hands and feet.
Right. So on that question, actually, just a small aside. I have heard some people target red light therapy for hair loss. How does that work?
Not working for me, but yeah, red light, it stimulates blood flow. This is one of the things it does, circulation and blood flow. And the theory about alopecia, maybe not just male pattern hair loss, but alopecia and some of the other things, once you bring back blood flow to those areas, and they sell these like caps you can buy, they have head wraps you can buy, it's all red light. So you brought up a question earlier about, these, how do you know the difference between the Chinese stuff coming out on Amazon versus this? It's just really knowing the science behind light and the photo industry about this. These Christmas lights that you use, just bulbs, don't emit any actual red light wavelength. It's just the color. So you have to know diode versus LED versus, and then how many of these bulbs are actually on the mat. So some people are getting tricked by just having light bulbs on these mats and they look red. So typically if you buy a mat that's small, let's say it's like 8 inches by 18 inches, you won't actually see much red. So if you light up this mat and it's red, you're getting just these Christmas lights. You're not actually.
I like that the expression Christmas lights.
Yeah, that's all you're getting, right? So, and it's the truth. So it's all about the diode and these things, and that's why this technology is expensive, because each one of those diodes is not cheap. It's not a light bulb with a filament in it. It's an LED emitting that wavelength. So that's it. And our bed, we can actually change the wavelengths for fat loss and for pain.
Right.
So that's cool. We couldn't do that with the wrap.
So what do you mean by changing for fat loss versus pain? Could you expand on that further?
The pain, the wavelength. So we're going to go down to the 500 wavelength of red light for fat loss to keep it penetrating just the skin, and then we'll go up to about 800 for the people who have global inflammation and pain, so it can penetrate a little bit deeper. Maybe the people with the brain fog that we were talking about, we put them on the 800, or neuropathy or any type of pain or inflammation type things we want to target. So there's a range that you can pick, and you can actually customize it. So doctors like myself may play with the full range. I might actually go like 720, something very unique for that patient, because I know their body composition, their size, and I can customize the wavelength for them rather than some of these machines that are just on, off, on, off.
Right. So to that point, with these devices, even though they're crappy and they're on Amazon and they're just Christmas lights, what would explain why people are leaving these 5-star reviews and claiming they've seen results from them? Like, is it just a placebo effect magnified by that much? Or like, what's really going on there? Because like it doesn't seem, it makes no sense to me that like we have this really expensive critical device that you were using with success, obviously, but then you've all these Amazon reviews of people who are using these devices that are supposedly crappy, yet they claim they're getting results. Like, are they lying? Are they victims of the placebo effect? Like, what's the story there?
Both, I think all of the above. I mean, I'd love to see them post before and after pictures that are real of them themselves. You don't see a lot of that happening. Our patients do. They post their pictures. So I think it's all of the above. I think some of these companies are not controlled by the FDA because they're overseas. They can do whatever they want. Let's just be honest. Amazon's it's got everything on it, good and bad.
Everywhere.
Unfortunately, you can buy supplements on Amazon now. I don't. So I wouldn't give that to my family. But so I don't have an answer for you there. I think there's good and bad people doing things all over the internet. So You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Are your patient testimonials and all the information posted on the Trifecta Light Bed website? Do you have your own website for sharing?
We have our own website because the bed is physical. We're not virtual. We keep it hyper local to Tampa, and we just want them to share their stories there and on our website. And again, weight loss, got to be very careful where we tag all this stuff. So it's all over the place. Our YouTube channel is free. We can post all the stuff on there. That doesn't hurt us in any way. So it's all over the place. Yeah. Trifecta and on Full Life.
Okay. Is it My Lutz Chiropractors? That's the website?
That's the one.
Okay. All right. I'll be looking through that and taking a look at the other stuff. Okay. Perfect. What else do I want to ask you? So can you tell me more about what Jay's experience was like, or at least like how he felt he was getting benefits out of the bed when he used it? Because I know he was there to use it for a couple minutes.
Yeah, he did a full session. Him and his wife tried it out. He loved it. I mean, it's hard to tell when you're sitting in there because the effects come afterwards. I mean, you have to repeat it. But he's had such great result with another brand that he uses that he's a full believer in this stuff.
I know what it is. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So he likes he liked it. He said nothing but great things about it. But he's so passionate that the research and the technology is actually there. It is one of the best, if not the best, red light therapy that's out on the market today. So he was just as excited as I was to get the message out there about it. And that's what spurred this whole conversation between you and me. Is like, yeah, I mean, the way I'm doing this is not filling its purpose. Like I'm doing it as a marketing thing to get people in the office to teach them about weight loss properly so that they can have lifelong effects of weight loss, which is just changing up their diet and influencing their life. But there's so much more to it. And I found that it's very difficult right now. Even when I tell a patient with pain, hey, come try red light, they're like, well, what's red light? It's like a completely new thing to most people. Is it safe? Is it a microwave? What's going to happen to me? I'm like, no, it's perfectly safe. So it's almost like a grassroots marketing program that we have to do and build up and get much more information out there. So, and we start with things like this.
Right. And this bed, is the bed FDA approved, or is it just the underlying technology that's FDA approved? How does that work? Just as a side.
Yeah, the underlying technology is FDA approved. So the wavelengths that we're using have to be
Mhm.
FDA approved in order to treat any patient. So that's there. Trifecta, don't quote me on this. I don't know if they've had their patent FDA approved. I want to
Okay.
assume so. In medicine, in medical devices, I assume so.
Right. And my question next would be about long-term results. Now, granted, some of the studies that I've seen on red light therapy are done over a shorter time interval, like let's say a few weeks. But I'm wondering, like, let's say I do a week of fat loss treatment. Like, how long are those results going to sustain before I go back to my norm, assuming I keep everything the same in terms of like diet and exercise?
Yeah, great question. I already tell patients this, it's going to go back to, if you did it for 1 week, in 1 week you'll be right back. If you did it for 1 month, you're going to be right back to where you are. You have to change the underlying reason of why your cells are being getting swole up anyways. So if we eliminate the kerosene, the fire can't get any bigger, right? If we keep introducing kerosene to the campfire, we're just going to keep getting these blazes. It's just going to keep coming back. So good question. But I just say, if you do it for a week, in a week, you're probably going to be back to where you are. Do you need to continue it forever? That's the next question. Not if you eliminate the kerosene.
Right. So basically, in that way, you would consider red light as an accelerant and not as a replacement.
100%.
Okay. I like that.
I would do long-term red light therapy for collagen, elastin, all the benefits that the skin gets from red light. I would love to do that forever. I mean, just to maintain skin health, collagen health, elastin health, minimize wrinkles, help with skin circulation. This helps prevent pathologies of the skin later on too. So a lot of good stuff. It heals sun damage, UV damage. It does a lot of cool stuff. So the long-term effects become more natural cosmetic than they do anything else.
Interesting. So it's almost like if I'm using an analogy, it's like getting your hair cut. You're not going to do it every day, but like every 2 to 3 months, you come in and you make sure you put everything back to normal in a way. So am I understanding it that way correctly?
Yeah, you'd have to find the frequency that works for you. And a lot of our patients that have been using it for 4+ months have now found their normal that they want to do, and then they're buying packages based on how often they're going to use it. Once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's becoming more than, I don't think anyone's at the once every 2 months. I don't think anyone's spacing those out that far. But I would say twice a month. I would say people are doing that right now, and they say they're benefiting. They maintain their skin or something cosmetic that they're maintaining that they like.
Right. How affordable would you say this is for most people? Because I imagine that in your case, I mean, it's not a cheap machine, and imagine to offer this treatment to people is not cheap either. So it's kind of like, as much as I want to promote it, it's like I want to make sure that people are in the right financial standing to afford this, because if they're paying that much, they want to get that much out, even though that can't be directly quantifiable.
Exactly. And because it's a newer product, I give the analogy when other chiropractors and other doctors ask me about it. I tell them, listen, you're buying a Ferrari and you're opening up an Uber account. You got to figure out what the cost per ride is to make sure before the Ferrari breaks down, you pay it off. But we're in business here. We don't want to break even. If we paid $100,000 for the Ferrari, you can't buy a Ferrari for $100,000. But if you buy it for that much, you want to make $150,000. Before that thing breaks down, you have to buy a new Ferrari. Make sense? So that's what this machine is. It's not a Hyundai. And I tell my patients that's why you're not getting it for $3 a session. It's a Ferrari, and you're going to lie in it for 12 minutes, and we're going to have a great race around the track, and you're going to get great benefits from it. So from a business perspective, we're still playing with that. We've done a whole bunch of different packages. People are confused. They're like, well, which one do I buy? I'm like, well, depends what the goals are. So we're still learning about it. And we're just going to have to see the longevity of this bed. Our wrap is still functioning. It's still working after 3 years. So that's where we got to play with. And I'm at the beginning of the market with this one. So I don't have the facts. I don't know, are we going to win? Or are we going to lose in business? Right. But the patients win.
Now, to your point, you mentioned the 12-minute session. How did you come across that specific time interval? Why not 20? Why not an hour? Like, why 12 minutes?
Because of the diode. So our wrap system, we have to do 20 up to 40 minutes. The first session's 20. As patients get used to it, they work their way up to 40-minute intervals of sessions, because their body, the penetration, we're shrinking as the cells get smaller. They need more photonic energy to get smaller. So at the very beginning, 20 minutes shrinks the cell, but 2 weeks later, those cells need a little bit more time to cook to become smaller. So, but with the bed, we've quadrupled the light force. So we don't need to start at 20 minutes. We can start at 10 because we're getting 4 times the amount of light. And really, because you're doing 4 times the amount of light, you don't have to go from 20 to 40 minutes. You can go from 10 to 12 minutes. That's the fraction of growth. So anything over 12 minutes in the literature showed to not be any more beneficial than 12 minutes.
Right. So there's actually a proven diminishing returns above a certain point, in other words.
Exactly. Yep. After 12 minutes, the skin starts to warm. You get too much circulation to the skin, and it's called redness of the skin. It will block the light from penetrating anymore. So the fat cells are getting nothing.
That's an interesting thing, because I've kind of asked people about this before, and they haven't really dived into it that specifically. They say, like, oh, it's just kind of the right amount. But now that you're mentioning an actual diminishing of returns, that's now provides more context, because some people would wonder, like, why 12? Why not just go to like an hour and get 4 times the benefits? But now that you're telling me that there's returns, now that makes sense, especially when you're using something like the trifecta bed to emit the red light therapy.
Right. Yeah. If you lie there for 24 hours straight, you'd be like, hey, I could lose 50 pounds. It doesn't work.
Right.
That way.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, you mentioned in the earlier parts of the interview, I think in the very beginning, there are benefits of red light therapy that aren't being talked about, that are undiscovered. Could you talk about some of those?
All the things that we're getting back. No one has told me anything about cholesterol. And here I am. And this is the number one thing I've been seeing in the last 3 months is the cholesterol. The actual markers, people are bringing in their blood work saying, I have done nothing. My diet is not good. And my cholesterol is going down. And they're all 40 plus age. So that's been very interesting. We're actually going to work with a local medical doctor here to actually refer some patients back and forth to collect the data. More of a clinical case study, more localized, just to see what's going on with cholesterol. Is this truly decreasing cholesterol? What's the mechanism to this? Is it truly healing the liver? Is it just the anti-inflammatory response? Is cholesterol in the blood being used to actually heal? Because that's what cholesterol's role in the human body is to circulate and heal damaged arterial tissue. That's what cholesterol is there for. So cholesterol is not a bad thing. It's just if we have too much, we create too much traffic, and that can create a traffic jam or a blood clot or, whatever risk of stroke. So that's where cholesterol is in there. So it's very cool. I'm not a researcher, so I don't know how far this is going to go, but at least we'll get some clinical data from primary care physicians referring straight to us, and like a placebo. Those patients will do nothing else. They won't do a diet. They won't do anything. They'll just use the red light. And then in 60 days, we'll redo their blood.
My next question would be, is there anybody who red light is not right for? Because I'm wondering, like, we're selling this thing. It sounds so perfect, but I'm wondering, like, are there people who you say for this specific demographic, probably it's best to stay away from red light?
Skin cancer in general, that's definitely a contraindication, not shown in any of the studies to be harmful at all. So I think this comes from the old research of cold laser and light therapy that increases, because in red light, you have an increase in adenosine triphosphate, ATP. This is the energy inside each cell.
Right.
Red light does stimulate the mitochondria to produce more ATP, which is a good antioxidant and an anti-inflammation process. So in cancer patients with cancer cells, we really don't want to stimulate any of their mitochondria to do anything silly. So I think as a precautionary, cancer has been something that you should be out of remittance for over 1 year. And then good to go. So we've had breast cancer patients go on there, because they've been in remittance for over a year and cleared by their doctor. So it's been good that way. And of course, pregnancy. I think those are just 2 things that we don't want to speed up any cell process in the fetus at all, or even mess with that. We don't even want to play with that. So those are the 2 things that we say no. And I think that's more just for the patient safety. Other than that, it's okay. We have to keep an eye on titanium replacements, shoulder replacements, hip replacements, and just monitor the patient to make sure there is actually no heating or any of it. But it doesn't penetrate that far to do that. But again, things that we should consider, devices, pacemakers, things like that. It's not going to interrupt the pacemaker because it's not sending any disruption in the electrical, but heating of any of the filaments, we don't want any of that.
Right. Yeah, that's good. if it makes sense. In terms of literature, I mean, I'm not sure if you've gone through this, but I've bought. Okay, this is kind of a silly confession of my own. Okay, I bought every single book on Amazon about red light therapy with my own money. I'm not joking. I can show you my Kindle library. It's every single book on Amazon that's available, including the paperbacks, which are coming to my house this week.
Wow. Okay.
And the overwhelming majority of them are terrible. I can either find the information online or they're not good. There are only 2 or 3 books that I'd say are really good. What has been your experience with finding literature for light therapy? Because I imagine not only do you have to wade through all the garbage, but like there are also different terms that people use. Like some people will not say red light therapy specifically, but they'll say low-level laser therapy, or they'll say photobiomodulation. What are your go-tos for finding good information about red light therapy in general?
You have to look at the research. So all books that are written are just somebody's opinion on the research that they have crossed, and it's convinced them one way or the other. So I write a book. So I'm going to write a book about how Italians are the best in the world, right? But that's just that's super biased, right? So that doesn't work very well. And I'm going to go find the literature to show how the Roman Empire was the best empire ever. But that's okay. So when I do my research, I'm going to PubMed and I'm looking at research by the universities, research centers, double-blind placebo, clinical studies, and case studies. I mean, that's just the formality of scientific research. Is we start with double-blind placebo and work our way down.
Right.
The double-blind placebo gold standard research, it was invented by the pharmaceutical company because it's very easy to do with synthetics, with chemicals. Very hard to do with like exercise physiology because you can't double-blind someone. Same thing with chiropractic. You can't not touch someone and perform a sham adjustment on someone. So if you touch them, there's some type of energy distribution there. So as soon as you touch them, the study doesn't work. But you can do placebo studies. You can do all this. So for me, it's not books. I will buy books by trusted researchers or doctors that I want to dive deeper into. But I found the same problem with you over my 16 years of being a doctor. And we tend to, and my wife too, as functional medicine, we tend to go straight to PubMed and the literature just to see what is coming out. And if it's a case study, we take it with a grain of salt. But if it's a clinical study, we're like, hey, look at this. This is pretty cool. So that's it. And that's what I was talking about cholesterol. It's going to be more of case studies, each patient's case study. Once you get many of these, you have a sample size and you create a clinical study. And that's pretty cool. Then you can move into a laboratory study of placebo testing.
Right. And the cholesterol reading, I find that you said was specifically interesting because if you can take care of someone's cholesterol with just red light therapy alone, and even like a basic lifestyle program, right? And that eliminates the need for pharmaceuticals entirely, even things like Ozempic.
100%. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Our patient. It's funny. Our patients, because we have compounded semaglutide and
tirzepatide. Yeah.
Yeah. We have access to that, and I tell them, listen, if you're running into issue, they're like, no. I want to do this naturally. So I think chiropractors play on the other side of the fence. It's just we attract people who are just sick and tired of being sick and tired with medicine. So we get that. And they want to do it the old-fashioned way. And yes, we've been getting results for 100 years doing it naturally with change of diet, decreasing cholesterol, decreasing A1C through diet, right? We believe in this. So we know it works. If you're using drugs, it's because you have other things going on that are restricting you from getting to your results, or you just don't have the energy to put into 100%, like Jay trying to get down to 5% body fat. I mean, you need to be in a mindset, have the time and the energy to do that, to get there. Most people are just happy to get down to like 25% and not be sluggish all the time. So, yeah.
So cholesterol, could you tell me maybe 1 or 2 more benefits that you find people aren't talking about? Because there's obviously the fat loss people talk about skincare all the time. People talk about anti-aging. People talk about satellite elimination. But I want to give this maybe 1 or 2 other things you've noticed that people aren't really paying attention to in red light. I mean, like, where are you also kind of at the forefront of things?
The third one is mood. That's the third biggest one in our office is mood. I don't know if this is mental clarity or what's going on, but their mood is changing. And I've been directing it back to their sleep improves. So decreasing that inflammation, I think from a doctor's mentality, I'm just thinking of all the possible hormonal cascades that happen when you decrease inflammation. It's probably regulating the cortisol rhythm. And I think because of that, their mood changes because they don't have the highs and the lows anymore, and they're getting back into a better sleep. So when they wake up, They've got the cortisol spike, and it comes right down normally like it used to when they were 12 years old. So I think that's it there. We could follow that up with cortisol studies to check that. But mood is number 3 for me. That's been kind of neat.
Okay, so fat loss, cholesterol, and mood. Those are your big 3 that you've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So is there anybody who you've seen red light therapy not work for? Like, or is there anybody who's an outlier and like for some reason it didn't work for them? Like, could you maybe expand on that a bit?
The people who don't listen. I mean, and there's a good handful of them. I'm going to say, 20%. So 1 out of 5 people that start the program, we do it. We throw everything at them, and they're truly not doing it. And then once you ask them from a heart to heart, not from a doctor to patient, they're like, yeah, I went to the movies last Friday, had a bag of gummy bears. I did, it's always so obvious as to why, because I tell people, listen, I cleared you. I checked your blood work, your thyroid, your A1C, everything. You're not diabetic. I don't have any other reasons why you're failing. And then that's where it all comes out. Yes, I do eat, you told me no bread, no pasta. We went to Carrabba's. I'm like, okay, see, so there we go. This is just not going to work because I told you to eliminate the kerosene. You went and got the kerosene. And that's
actually,
okay. That's okay.
That's an interesting point you mentioned is the use of blood work alongside red light therapy. That's actually the one I haven't heard of yet amongst the people I've talked to.
I'm so, evidence-based. Like I'm just so scientific. Everything I do, engineer mind. I need to see stuff. So we have like cone beam CT and X-ray in the office. I'm the only chiropractor that has it in like the whole area.
Wow.
Because if I need to go deeper and see a CT version of your neck, because of maybe some other abnormalities, soft tissue, that we have that too. So same thing with the beds. I have 2. No, not very many clinics have both the wrap and the bed. It's because that's how my mind works. Is I need to know that I'm giving the patient the absolute best. So we do blood work on everyone, or ask for recent blood work before you even start the program.
Awesome. That's awesome. Let's see. I think I have 1 or 2 more questions before I let you go. Let's see. It was about I think it had to do with skin. So, I mean, the way I see this going with myself, and Jay is that we're going to be writing about red light therapy a lot. And I'm thinking it might be in our best interest to do 1 deep dive article on each specific benefit of red light therapy. So like 1 article will be about fat loss. That's actually going to be our debut article. Then we'll start to go into a skin and then aging and other stuff. What have you noticed with skincare specifically with red lights?
Personally, yeah, I've had this my whole life. These things, and they've left me with deep wrinkles. The deep wrinkles are gone. Like I don't have the deep wrinkles are gone. I've been using it for about 6 months. You can see them faintly, but they used to be deep. They used to look like this.
Mine, I thought were pretty.
Yeah, you and I mean, you're younger. So, I mean, that stuff can turn into a deep wrinkle. But for me, it was. And I've noticed that with my usage about twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been what I've seen. Inflammation for sure. My jawline and all that, I can see that. The inflammation gone down too. And my wife said the same thing from a female perspective as well, wrinkles. And that's been the number 1 thing a lot of people, because of the elastin production, it stimulates the elastin and the collagen production in our skin. So as we age, it's almost like the skin stops talking to the rest of the body, and it doesn't require the collagen production anymore, but the light just kind of wakes up that whole process, and the collagen production starts again, which is very cool.
Awesome. What about would it also work for dark eyes, like under the circles? Would red light work for that too?
I don't know. That's a great one. I'll keep an eye on it. I don't have that. I don't know very many patients that have said anything about that, but we've seen blemishes, rosacea, even some people freckles. They said those seem like they're diminishing or fading. But the wrinkle, the crow's, what do they call that? Crow's feet on the side, right, for the older population, they're super happy about that. So I don't know about the dark.
Okay. One final one I'll ask you about before I let you go is pain. So you mentioned with that one, you need a different wavelength to penetrate the body.
Mm-hmm. You change it on the mass of the patient. So if they're bigger, you want to get a little bit more of a higher wavelength to penetrate the skin a little bit further. I don't do spine on it because I just know the science. I don't think we're going to get that deep with red light. Doesn't hurt to try, but I'm doing it for more of my extremity patients, knees, ankles, shoulders, neck pain. We put them on there for decreasing pain, because if you decrease inflammation, automatically you feel better. So that's like people who are taking 4 Tylenol a day. I'm like, hang on a second. Let's go try the red light. And immediately they're like, I'm not taking the Tylenol anymore. because they're feeling better. They're feeling good enough to not take any drugs, which is great. From my perspective, I don't want you taking 150 tablets in a month, because that's not good on your kidneys. So, that's how we help them that way.
Okay. And so for the pain, I mean, it pretty much just comes down to inflammation reduction, right? With that mechanism. But I'm wondering, does it actually treat the underlying problem, or is it just something that like masks the pain but doesn't treat like what's causing the pain in the first place?
It stimulates ATP. We know that. Stimulating ATP stimulates the cell's regenerative properties, which can help with the healing process. So we also do stem cell and regenerative medicine in our office, where we actually inject joints with stem cells or PRP. We will couple that with red light therapy too, to help speed up that process and contain it. So because we know how cells work. So if we're pumping in stem cells for whatever, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, we want to make sure that those stay healthy, replicate properly, and red light can facilitate that.
Okay. Because I was just kind of wondering like what to what extent pain is treated by red light therapy. Because imagine it wouldn't be like 100%. Like imagine it'd be more like it'll help. It's like the fat loss thing. It's like an accelerant, but it's not a cure.
Correct. You're right. Wherever you use photonic energy and you isolate it to any particular pain site or joint, it's going to facilitate more ATP production and white blood cell and plasma production in that area. It's going to attract those cells that help heal tissue. So you're boosting the body's natural ability to heal, but you're not doing any type of microsurgery to help the tissue or anything like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Dr. I think you're right. Dosicor?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Listen, I'll let you go. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit here and interview with me. I do apologize for being late this morning. Send me the recording when you can. I mean, don't rush. I may come back to with more questions, but